Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Nathan Ross Rees Reformer Podcast. Today I'm here with the amazing Chrisen Presence. He's come all the way down from Sydney this weekend, big weekend full of workshops. And I'm really excited today to get to know his origin story. He's been teaching now for over 15 years, so started back in 2009. And yeah, it's going to be awesome to learn about your story today. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast because I'm actually a huge fan of yours. So thank you.
Thanks.
So this is my 16th year teaching Pilates, but it's my 20th year doing Pilates. So I think I should probably tell you where my love for Pilates started. And it started with my mum in my living room. I was 15 years old. I was reasonably an overweight teenager, which resulted in being a kind of insecure teenager. And I absolutely hated sports. I hated movement. I was super intimidated by the concept of going to do the sports with the boys. You know, my mum actually did enroll me in football for one day. And I was like, hell no, get me out of here. So I was never an athletic kid or never someone that even thought that being athletic was even possible for me. But then my mom introduced me to Pilates, to Windsor Pilates. Have you tried Windsor Pilates
No.
or heard of it? Okay. Well, you have to YouTube it. Rest in peace, Mari Windsor. So it was 2005. And I believe that, in a sense, Pilates being a mainstream word is probably revolutionized by Madonna. I don't know if you remember, but she mentioned Pilates in one of her songs, and also by Mari Windsor, because it was this DVD set that was on the infomercials.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. You've got to YouTube it. So it was like every night after 10 p.m., it was Mari Windsor, Tony Robbins, and Proactive. And that just played on repeat when I was a teenager. So my mom got me Windsor Pilates, and I honestly never, ever looked back. I did it every single day from about 15 years old. I literally had my mat next to my bed in my room. My alarm would go off and I would just roll out of bed and literally just do hundreds to start the day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now, how did I become a Pilates instructor? Well, because of the way I started Pilates when I was 15 years old and because of how I became an instructor, I kind of feel like Pilates chose me and not the other way around. The way I became a Pilates instructor is technically I got stuck in a Pilates membership.
Okay.
So what happened is I was in Boost Juice in Newtown, Newtown in Sydney.
Yep.
And in Boost Juice, there was a box that said, put your name in here to win a free Pilates membership. So I was like, yeah, great. That sounds amazing. So I put my name in there. Of course, I didn't win the Pilates membership, but what I did win is a 30-day free trial.
Okay.
Obviously, knowing what I know now, that was just a leads generation for the gym, but it doesn't matter because it worked out in my favor times 10. So I went in for the free trial, and the conditions were that you are going to be locked into a membership if you don't cancel out by the 30th day.
Okay.
Now, because I was a silly 18-year-old who just was flippant with everything, of course, I didn't sign out of the membership. So I got locked into the membership. So the only way forward I saw is that, well, I'm locked in this membership. So now I have to go and use it. I have to go and use it because I'm paying for it. So I did. I went to the Pilates classes day after day. And then after about doing that for about 6 months, the owner approached me and she said, hey, you should become a Pilates instructor.
Wow.
And I was like, an instructor? Like, what? Why? Like, how? But then she was like, well, it's way funner than like working in restaurants, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, that sounds great. I'll give it a go. Because obviously I was so young back then. I wasn't thinking about 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. I was quite literally just saying yes to something that sounded quite literally fun. And then fast forward, I'm 16 years into a career that I absolutely love.
Wow. I love that. I love that how you're saying that it chose you, because it's like it chose you and it locked you in. Basically, it's like you're doing this.
Pretty much. This is definitely my longest relationship besides my parents and my grandparents.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I love that. So you started your teaching journey quite early, quite young, and what was it? What was that process like? So they onboarded you. Did you get a certificate through a training organization? How did it start?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience actually. So it isn't a studio that you'd recognize or a brand that you know because unfortunately they have now closed down and gone into other things. But it was a big group studio in central Sydney, and they had a in-house training program that gave you a certificate. And the best thing about this course is that not only did you do the intake where you went on the weekend and did the hours, but this particular studio at the time, every single Friday we did staff training.
Mhm.
So that's how I was introduced into the industry. I was kind of, I guess in a sense, had a very intense apprenticeship, whereas I did the course hours, but then every single Friday for over 12 months, I was training with my boss. You know, she was teaching me, she was correcting me, she was telling me how to improve things. She was essentially mentoring me. Looking back now, I realized that that was an incredible opportunity because it's reasonably unheard of to do so much mentoring and training when you're a new instructor.
Mm. It's definitely not standard now. Wow, that's awesome. So that Friday schedule, was that in the afternoon? How did that work?
Yeah, we did it every Friday afternoon.
Yep.
And we would have all different kinds of things like physios coming in, chiros coming in, planning, programming, rehab, injuries kind of stuff. Most of the stuff that you would assume that a studio would want to train you in.
Yep.
And at the time, there was only one other big group reformer studio in Sydney.
Mhm. Wow.
It wasn't like now, which obviously now you can throw a stone and hit a million Pilates studios. So there was really only one other studio. So it was, yeah, looking back, I realized it was actually very exciting to be a part of that. I can now look back and recognize that I was kind of a part of that pioneering of group reformer, which is a I guess a unique thing to be able to experience.
That's incredible insight. It's like when I think about that story saying that back in the day when there was like what two studios in Sydney, it's like it feels like that should be in like a black and white photo or something. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to imagine that. So so you've seen that and then you've experienced the entire change in the industry from that time. That's incredible. It's really cool.
I've been teaching Pilates long enough now that it was truly niche back then. People didn't really know what Pilates was. They thought it was yoga. Lol. You know, classic. They thought it was only for rehab. And back then it kind of actually was for rehab. So when I think about back then, these two studios I'm thinking of, and I know it was similar to here with studios here as well, that they revolutionized that group fitness, you know, how Pilates can be more than rehab or Pilates can be more than a clinical space. So yeah, it was super exciting.
How many reformers were there?
Oh, there was definitely over 20.
Yep.
Not more than 30. I can't remember, but it was big.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow, it's a really good experience. And that's so your origin point from there, did you so you're teaching reformer classes, were you teaching on any other apparatus?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was always fully comprehensively trained from day one because they had all the apparatus. So they operated what would be, I guess, a pretty traditional approach to how Pilates would be delivered. They had the group reformer studio, then they had the group mat studio and yoga as well. Then they had a small studio equipment room where it was usually 1 to 4.
Yep.
And the best thing about working there is I literally went from being novice to having a full teaching schedule overnight.
Wow.
So there was no training wheels from me or no slow breaking me in. In fact, the first class I ever taught, I had about 2 minutes notice because I went in to observe my favorite instructor and she had morning sickness and she was throwing up her guts. So I literally, 19 years old, I barely finished my training with 2 minutes notice, just had to hit the ground running and teach my first reformer class. So
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the common things that I say to instructors, one of the common things you'll hear me say again and again and again, you're never going to feel ready. You're never going to be ready or feel ready. Pilates teaching is something that happens in real time. You can't learn how to be a Pilates instructor by reading it in a book or reading it in
Mm.
a manual. You have to just go and do it. And I'm speaking from 1000% personal experience. There was no training wheels for me. I just hit the ground running.
Wow. Yeah, because that's kind of like the difference between being prepared and being ready. Being ready is a decision. You just have to do it in the moment. So you might not be 100% prepared, but as far as deciding that you're going to start, then it's a decision to start and to do it. So it's very brave of you to step up in 2 minutes' notice. So would have been a pretty exciting class to teach.
Oh, it was exhilarating. Now that I am an educator and a mentor, I see almost to a T exactly the process that I went through. Every instructor goes through. I
Mm.
taught the class. I, went into the zone, you could say, and just did my very best. And afterwards, I was just anxiety city, like ruminating. Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that is the journey. That really is
Mm.
the journey. The mess and the chaos
Yep.
is the journey of being a Pilates instructor.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, because it is very glamorized. But the reality of like learning a new skill is that you have to make mistakes and then learn. So that's yeah. The more you do that, the quicker you do that, the better you're going to be.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
take my hat off to anybody that wants to learn a new skill, but I have so much respect actually for the new instructors that I get to train because I still remember what it feels like to be a newbie.
Mm.
I still remember how intimidating it is to be a novice instructor.
Mm. And also like stepping into an environment where there's such a strong established culture and team, like the clients in those environments, they know they have expectations. So stepping into a strong environment requires like that little bit extra level of confidence to pull it off, because if you're opening up a new studio in a new area and 90% of the clients are new, then they're happy with whatever it is because they don't have any expectations. But if you're coming into like a really strong team, then yeah, that's good. That's tough, but that's good.
You're so right. You really have to step it up
Mm.
if you come into an already established studio because inevitably the clients will probably compare you to the lead instructor.
Mm.
But I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that was a good thing for me. The people that worked above me back then were amazing,
Mm.
just so amazing. And I did feel very inferior. How could I not? I did have imposter syndrome. How can I not? But I leaned on them and I aspired to be like them
Mm.
and it worked. In fact, actually, I used to have so much anxiety about being perfect that I was on the desk early morning opening with a fellow instructor named Ingrid, and she gave me the best piece of advice that I think about all the time. She said, Chrisen, she said, relax. Nobody is a good instructor until they've done it for 10 years. And I was like, 10 years? Like, is she serious? Now that I've done it for 16 years, I'm not gonna like be literal about the 10-year mark, but I can definitely confirm that it does take a long time to feel like, yeah, okay, I'm really, really good at this. At least it did me. So when she said that to me, oh my days, it just alleviated me of all the pressure I put on myself that it's not about being perfect, actually. It's just about learning, getting better, being better, and doing the very best you can.
That's right. Looking after everyone. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I've also too, I feel like a lot of that anxiety at the start, the focus to have that anxiety is you're kind of focusing on yourself, and fair enough because it's new. But if you're looking at the actual what's going on in the minds of the clients, they're not focusing on you. They're just focusing on whatever you say to do. So they're just looking for instructions that are clear. So kind of shifting the focus from outside of yourself to just what the task is, I think that can help. Yeah.
So true. A lot of new instructors get hyper fixated on doing it perfect or doing it right, don't they? But the reality is that clients' expectations are usually a lot lower than what you are putting on yourself, which is a huge relief.
Yep, that's right. They're just looking for the next thing, that next instruction. Well, okay. So you started off, hit the ground running, and not only in group reformer, but all the apparatus. So how far into the future did you go before you started to branch out, or maybe the Sydney market expanded and maybe you're teaching other locations? What happened?
So after breaking my training wheels, I guess, with that first studio, unfortunately it closed down. So so I was forced to find other opportunities. And then I started to work at this place called Body Mind Life,
Mhm.
which is an incredible Pilates and yoga studio in Sydney. And I'm so glad that I worked for Body Mind Life because that's where I became a Pilates educator. Because in 2020, I got the chance to join this incredible other instructor named Chelsea on the Reformer and Mat course. And in the midst of that, I also lived in London for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And that was amazing. So I've worked at a lot of studios. I've worked at a lot of gyms. I've worked in all different kinds of environments, big group, small group, one-on-one, rehab, clinical. And I don't regret any of it
Yep.
because it's always pushed me to just be better and to adapt and evolve. You know, I've worked in classical environments, really classical environments. I've worked in studios where we were only allowed to teach the Joseph Pilates order. I loved it. I've worked in the most fitnessy of fitnessy places where we're doing heavy dumbbells in short box series. Loved it. I've loved all these different environments that I've worked in because it's, led me to the teacher that I am. It's led me to the instructor that I am today.
Mm. Mm. What was the motivation to go to London for 2 years?
The motivation was that in the midst of having my Pilates career, I also had a very short-lived music career. So I moved to London to chase my dreams of becoming a singer. And I did chase them for quite some time. I had a song. I've got a song on YouTube. You can check it out if you like.
Yeah,
It's
what's
kinda
it called?
It's called Anyone Like You.
Okay.
So yeah, I chased I guess you could say the London dream, the Aussie going to London, big city vibes, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, and I taught Pilates there for the whole time, all over the city. And again, that was actually an amazing experience for me to work in London because then I got the chance to, again, keep working in group performer studios, but also work in more upmarket studios as well. I got to work in places like South Kensington, which is quite a posh area of London. That was a good experience for me. I was 25 at the time, so I definitely learned a lot about people skills or people management, you could say.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
What was the challenges that you faced that enabled you to adapt? What was the what am I trying to say? What were the situations which created that new skill set for dealing with people?
I remember that when I was in London, I thought I knew difficult clients,
Okay.
but I didn't.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily saying that in a negative light because I learned a lot, but I just learned how to deal with new personality types that maybe I hadn't really encountered in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I learned when I was there is the city that you work in, or even the neighborhood that you work in, that's going to have an impact on the type of classes that you run.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that until I moved. And I'm learning that even more now that I travel because of my education stuff. So for example, I've been teaching in Sydney at that time for 5 years, and everybody knew what Pilates was by that stage. Everybody had an understanding. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people coming into the studio had an understanding of the general basics of what Pilates is. But as everybody knows, Sydney is a very fitness driven city. You know, even if you meet a new client in Sydney that have never done bridge on the reformer, they've probably done a hip thrust, you know, or they've probably done a deadlift. So they're not a novice mover. But I was living in London in about 2016, and I met a lot of clients in their 30s, in their 40s, but that was their first time really ever participating in anything athletic.
Wow.
So that was an amazing experience for me because I kind of, again, every time you change environments, it's such a blessing. You have to adapt yourself. You know, Pilates is a method, right? It's not this copy paste, one size fits all kind of thing. It's adaptive depending on where you are or depending on who is in the room. So that really challenged me when I moved to London in a good way.
Wow. I love that. I love that. It's really true that the clients that you're teaching, they kind of have different expectations based on whatever the norm is in that area. You know, like if you go through the world and look at different areas, you could definitely say there's different parts of the world that are kind of still set in different time frames based on what the expectations are or how it should be, in air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Australia, lots of America pretty much progressed into like as far forward into different variations as it could be and everything's fine. But then you get different parts of Europe and like the UK where it's pretty much still held, you know, the way it was. But everything's changing. So stepping into different environments with different expectations and adapting to it. Is there anything that you would be able to give as advice for new clients, new instructors that helps them adapt better to different environments?
Well, experience is paramount. So if you have the chance or the capacity to work in a few environments, I think that's good for new instructors. So some people don't like it, but I think it's good, you know, to jump around maybe 2 to 3 studios when you're new, because that each studio is going to demand, in a sense, I guess, a different kind of version of yourself. But the second thing really is, and this goes even to experienced instructors as well, is you just have to be present with the room, you know, read the room. There's a huge obsession right now with class planning, which I support. You know, you should class plan because you want to give your clients the best possible experience, but you can only plan to a certain degree. You still have to be able to read the room and, you know, adapt on the fly depending on, you know, do you want to make it harder? Do you want to make it easier? Maybe so many things, you know, maybe your cueing doesn't make sense. Maybe they, you know, the music is too loud. They can't hear you. You have to be able to adapt.
That's right. Being able to adapt requires awareness, and awareness requires intention. You have to compare your intention to reality. So, very true. I feel like a lot of the instructors, they maybe lack in the department the most of awareness, and that's probably what's holding them back with reading the room. If they're unaware of what's happening, then they're never really going to pick up on what's happening. How did you build your awareness when you were teaching? Like, particularly, we're talking like group reformer studio, like 20 plus reformers. Like for a lot of people out there, that's like completely unbelievable. They wouldn't even think that that would be possible. So, how did you build your awareness to better handle an environment like that?
My best friend with group reformer has always been layering. And I'm so glad that it's taking off as a common concept in the Pilates world. You know, it's all online everywhere. People are talking about layering, so on and so on. But for me, I've always leaned on layering in my classes because it's just the most logical way to teach group reformer. And it's a method, it's a structure that you can rely on and make sure that you are looking after your newbies and then you're looking after your more experienced people. And I've built the awareness actually just, as you said, through the intention.
Yep.
You know, even to this day, even 16 years in, I still am having a conversation with myself whilst I'm teaching. I'm reminding myself, stop talking for 10 seconds. Just have a look at their hip position.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find yourself getting fixated on one client and you're like, wait, no, redirect your attention to the other client. So there's a constant conversation in my head. It's kind of, I'm in the present moment, but I'm also 2 steps forward. And then I'm also evaluating myself at the same time.
Yep. Yep.
I notice that new instructors struggle with this a lot. And I've come to observe that some of them have a hyperfixation on being perfect,
Mm-hmm.
on doing it right, on cueing everything exactly like I cue it, or cueing it exactly like they have seen it online. And I don't necessarily judge their attempts or motivation to be really good. But if you're so up here, if you're so stuck in your mind, you won't be present with what's happening in the room. And that's really probably what's more important than being really good at the exercises. To be a teacher, you have to be a leader. So you have to watch, you have to observe, you have to make adaptations for real time.
That's right. Yeah. And a part of being a leader is making sure everyone is getting the experience you intended and no one's left behind. So with that in mind, making decisions based on the needs that your group has. So that's a really good point about leadership. Yeah. And what I'd like to see is, particularly in the training process as an educator, that we're empowering instructors with down the direction of critical thinking as opposed to just compliance with ticking boxes. So you're actually building an understanding, building an intention, giving them the skill set to be able to read the room and handle it, as opposed to just do this and say this and you're fine. Because the real world compliance measures don't work. They don't help you adapt.
I love that. This is where Pilates is actually. That is my favorite thing about where Pilates is now, because a lot of people would assume, because of my experience level, I'm nostalgic for how things were. I'm not. I love how we're in this space where it's going to become the norm to give instructors the critical thinking skills to actually ask why and perhaps even come up with the answers for them. Because, the way I was trained is definitely in the more classical style, where you learn the choreography. That must be an inhale. That must be an exhale. Joseph did it like that, so you do it like this. It didn't take long before I started to push back against that stuff, because my mind was always like, well, doesn't it depend on, this, and that? So I love that that's where Pilates instructors are. I love that there's a variety of interpretations that are not just great, but they're interpretations that are respected, because that's how it should be.
Now, I did a little bit of reading to prepare for today, and I found your website, and it's www.chrisenpresence.com.
ChrisenPilates.com.
Oh, sorry, chrisenpilates.com. Is it .au or just .com?
.com.
.com, okay. So on there, one thing I'm really always interested in is I love kind of talking about philosophy, particularly when it comes to someone who's an educator, because to get to that point, you've had to make so many decisions, and then you had to prioritize what you want to do. Because if you see 10 ways of doing something and you have to pick one yourself, philosophy will determine what your priorities are. So for you now to have your own philosophy with your teaching method, how has that evolved over time, and what have you come now to prioritize?
I've come to prioritize instructors being industry ready. So a huge part of what I specialize in is helping instructors go from just being certified to actually being industry ready. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you're confident, you have the skills to build a long and successful career. So I do teach traditional Pilates, but I also teach contemporary Pilates, because I believe that the best instructors should know both. They should have multiple approaches because that's probably what's going to work for your clients. So, where I specialize in is helping bookmark. So, where I specialize in is helping instructors go from being certified to actually being industry ready. Because I know now from experience that it's not enough to just be a good Pilates instructor. It's not enough to just have the certificate that certifies you to teach footwork or teach a pelvic curl. You have to have industry ready skills like personality, energy, relationship skills, business skills, soft marketing skills, cueing skills. So that is what my philosophy is I'm going to teach you everything I know, which includes traditional Pilates, because I'm proud to say that I can teach traditional Pilates. So the Pilates police find it hard to go after me because I'm in their world at the end of the day. But I also understand Pilates now in 2026. I've got 20,000 plus hours of experience of teaching group reformer classes, and more importantly, dynamic group reformer classes, because that's a whole skill set within itself. And when Pilates instructors come and see me, their usual pain points is that their career isn't going the way they had hoped it would go. You know, they come to me, they're looking for advice on how to get better jobs or get better opportunities or make more money. They want a better schedule. They want a successful Pilates studio. Or they come and see me because there's so much noise on the internet about what is right and what isn't right. So that's their two pain points that they come and see me for.
How do you help someone get from A to B? Let's say that they are unhappy with where their career's at and they want to progress, as you said, maybe making more money or different opportunities. What can they do?
A really great starting point is training, education. There's so many options now, 3-hour workshops, 1-day workshops, 2-day workshops. I think training and education is really the only way forward. You need to learn how to do the things that you can't do.
Yep.
And there's so many amazing people like yourself out there that are here ready to teach, ready to help Pilates instructors go from good to great.
Well, that's it. Mentorship is probably the quickest way because you're getting someone who's already doing what you want to do to show you how they do it. That's, I mean, you look at any field, business, any field, elite sport, having a coach kind of like changes the learning curve. It puts you at a high performance level faster, for sure. Yeah, so that is really cool that you can help people do that. I noticed that you've done that for people in multiple countries, which is awesome. People have done your training and now gone on to open studios. So it must make you feel great to see that kind of progression.
Honestly, I feel exceptionally privileged to be a part of other people's success stories. In fact, I feel like I'm talking about somebody else when I even say phrases like that because it just feels too awesome to be a part of other people's journey. I've got alumni now all around the world, some of which who have multiple studios. And it's amazing actually, because what really drives me really is that I love teaching Pilates instructors, but at the end of the day, I love Pilates. So I want people, I want the world, I want the community to have access to really good Pilates instructors.
Yes, cool. I see you've got a workshop coming up in Portugal in September.
Yes, so I'm going to be in Portugal in September for 2 events actually. So I've got a 5-day retreat with these 2 other amazing Pilates instructor named Josh and Xavier. Josh lives in Portugal and Xavier lives in Indonesia. And then the weekend before the retreat, we're hosting with a bunch of other instructors a Pilates conference. So the retreat is a mixture of Pilates for everybody, instructors and non-instructors, and it also has educational stuff as well. But the weekend before that, we're doing a 3-day Pilates conference, which is just for Pilates instructors. And this is the second time they've run this in Lisbon. So I'm so excited to be even invited and to be a part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I feel like there's so many instructors out there that are seeing these big opportunities opening up, and they would absolutely be over the moon to get involved in being an educator in that form. How, based on your career trajectory and how you've progressed, what do you think would be the best strategy for someone to develop into someone who can be a teacher trainer at that level, maybe in an international level?
A lot of people don't want to hear this because they want it to be easy, but you have to get on social media. Social media has been a game changer for my career. And if you had have told me 5 years ago what social media would have done for my career, I would have started 10 years ago. I've only been making content now for a year, so it's taken off way faster than I had anticipated. But if you want to branch out beyond timetable teaching, let's say that, being on the timetable and just being able to earn money for your hourly classes, you have to just build a community. If you want to do retreats, if you want to have workshops, if you want to have 1 hour events, just build a community. So I think social media, it's a no-brainer because it's free and it's time consuming, but I think it's amazing that we have access to this incredible tool that costs us time, but doesn't cost us money. And then the second thing is, it's really cliche, but you actually have to believe in yourself and back yourself, because that took me a little while to actually do. It took me a little bit of time to actually believe that I could step into the role of being a Pilates educator or being a Pilates mentor. I definitely, for many, many years, was like, oh no, like nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Like, it's just no way. But then I pushed myself to just step past that internal saboteur voice and just do it. And I'm so glad I did, because this last 2 years, my schedule has looked incredibly different to the previous 2 years. It's crazy. I only now teach about 10 group classes per week. So it's about 25% of my working commitments. But about 3 years ago, I was just like a lot of Pilates instructors, 30 classes a week, sometimes more. I did that for years and years and years and years and years. And when you're burnt out, you think, oh, wow, there's no way out of this. There's no way I can get out of this. But there is a way out of it if you want that. Social media and then believing in yourself.
Well, you're taking that real world experience and then you're finding a new way to provide value to other people with it. And all these things are so niche because when you build that community is built around like your philosophy and the things that you prioritize. So whoever connects with that, that's, like what you're saying earlier today, how you started off when you were 15 doing mat Pilates with your mum at home. What was her name again?
My mum?
Your mum and the instructor.
Mari Windsor.
Mari Windsor.
Yeah, Windsor Pilates.
Pilates. Okay.
It's best.
So because Mari Windsor created Windsor Pilates, that had a flow-on effect where it's, influenced your career, and you're doing the same thing now. There's going to be people at home that are going to be doing your workouts in some form, getting inspired, and then having careers too. So it's a really positive flow-on effect that when you step into that space where you want to be bold and be confident about, showing the world the things that you prioritize and what you believe in, then it can be unbelievable where it takes you, because it can go way beyond your wildest dreams, the opportunities that open up, because you're kind of solving problems for people. Every step that you progress, you have the ability now to help everyone who hasn't made it to that point. So the more you develop yourself, the more people you can help. I just think the initial jump is scary, particularly if you're jumping away from being a full-time instructor, because that's the certainty of having those hours and the certainty of having that income. But to step forward into the unknown with courage, you could be within 2 years, 5x, 10x your income. You're creating a life that you're more excited about. You're traveling internationally. You know what I mean? That can happen. It happens, but it only happens if you're bold enough to back yourself. Hey.
Bold enough to back yourself. You absolutely nailed it. And I can say with gratitude that I don't even really recognize my life sometimes, actually, because of the opportunities that have come because of backing myself. I'm sure the same thing happens to you, but I wake up with opportunities in my DMs.
Mm.
Not every day, but they're regular. I wake up, opportunities just literally fall into my lap. Some of the opportunities that I didn't even think were possible to me. I thought that it would just be too hard to achieve these goals. And the second thing that has transformed my life, actually, in terms of social media is the sheer gratitude that people express. Actually, does the same thing happen to you? People write you DMs all the time saying thank you for this, that video helped me with this, I was struggling with this, and then your video changed it for me. Because of your video, I started teaching and I didn't think I would start teaching, so I'm getting messages, not videos, I'm getting messages and DMs like that all the time. And it feels actually way better than I thought it would to just give back and just help.
Mm. Mm. Do you have a strategy / philosophy when it comes to social media? Because a common theme from what I've seen, and I think it's the same for you. It's my belief it's the same for you, but I'll see that people that generally share the things that they find the most valuable for free tend to be the ones that grow the quickest, because people find the most value in the content and it's just naturally more viral and useful. So being open and being because it's an abundance mindset, because it's very easy if you have content which is valuable to try and gatekeep it and hide it. But to actually give it away and share it, that's like a different mentality, and then you get different results because of that. Based on what I've seen from your social media, I would say that you're very much about sharing really valuable things for free. Tell us about that.
When I decided to go into content creation for Pilates, I did meditate, I guess you could say, on this term gatekeep. That's a term that's thrown around in the Pilates world a lot. And I don't want to be a gatekeeper because it doesn't align with my values. And I've learned that knowledge is power and knowledge should be shared, because that's how I've gotten to where I am. I wouldn't be half the instructor I am without the people that helped me or the mentors that guided me. So, of course, part of my strategy when I started out, I was aware of the fact, am I giving away things for free? Am I, saying things that I should be charging people for? But I took the advice of people who knew about social media. When I started making content creation, I took myself on what I would say like social media university. I watched hours and hours of TikTok, IG videos with, social media experts. I watch YouTube after YouTube of, if you do this, you're going to have these results and la la la. And all of them said, give away content that's valuable, have an authentic point of view, and be yourself. They all said that. So I was like, okay, they know what they're doing, so I'll do it. And then I have 33,000 followers in a year.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. The results are basically the proof, and to be able to, I mean, as I'm sitting here listening to you, there's not one part of the story which is accidental. Like you've chosen to become this version of yourself. You've studied how to do it, and then you've put in the consistency to make it happen. Because social media is also a consistency thing. And I reckon the most valuable thing with social media is time, because you don't get the time back. So if you don't post, then you can't just go rewind back to yesterday and post it. Like if it's, for example, if you, I don't know, go for a week, a month without posting, that's a whole bunch of momentum you've lost and you're not going to get it back. So setting up some kind of schedule to kind of make it like a habit, that's usually where people, I think, come unstuck. Because once you've kind of got through your first couple of like awesome ideas, like, well, shit, what do I do now? Like what do I talk about now? But consistency, how do you stay consistent? Is there a strategy you've got? Is there a system you have?
When I started out, it was complete chaos, to be honest. Because I followed what the boys and girls on my TikTok university taught me, is that when you start out, just do a bit of everything and figure out what is going to work for you.
Okay.
So I did that. So I cringe when I look back at some of my early videos, but I was just playing around, trying things out. So back then I just was posting volume, trying out there's multiple approaches, I think, for Pilates instructors. You can take the educational route, you can take the comedy route, you can take the carousel routes. Carousels are definitely the best performing posts in my experience. You can obviously take the exercise route and show the exercises. Most Pilates content creators do a mixture of all, but they might lean towards one. So now, because I played around for months and months and months, I now know what works for me. But what's different now is that back then I didn't have the opportunities to even be doing like workshops or doing traveling stuff. But so of course now that informs some of my content, because like, thank you, now I have things to promote, that I use my content for.
Yep. So you're giving it like a direction.
Yeah.
So tell us about your 2 workshops down here in Melbourne this weekend. So it's your second time to Melbourne running workshops. I'm excited to learn more about the topics, and I know they're 3 hours, right? Yeah.
The Friday one is 2 hours. The
Okay.
Sunday is 3.
Okay. From what I've seen, one is on advanced teaching, and the other's on your method when it comes to layering and queuing. Is that
Correct.
right? Yeah. Okay.
So my first workshop is a 2-hour workshop on advanced classical reformer. So we're going to be learning teaser, tendon stretch, tree, and horseback. So I love teaching this workshop because I know a lot of group reformer instructors, they want to learn the classical advanced stuff, but it might not be necessary, or they're not ready to partake in, a full 3-4 day training to learn the full repertoire. So this workshop that I teach is like a little teeny tiny bite size place, and I keep it really capped to small numbers for this because I like it to be really hands-on. So it's a teeny tiny little, bite size introduction into some of the classical reformer exercises that I know a lot of instructors see online and they're curious about it and they want to learn. And luckily for me, no one really teaches these in group classes. So, so it's something exciting that I can teach people. And a lot of instructors, when they do it, they walk out feeling like they really learned something. And they learn a lot of new things because they're getting to practice exercises that they're not able to do. And then the second one is my workshop on layering and cueing, because I have my method that I found to be my method for how I cue, and my method for how I layer for group classes. So this workshop is less about learning exercises, but more about learning how to apply a structure that you can repeat class after class and just know that your clients are going to get an amazing workout, going to get a dynamic workout, and you're going to feel amazing because you're going to be able to cue it clearly.
That's right. And the bigger the group, the more you rely on effectiveness when it comes to strategy. Because once you've got a strategy, all you're doing is repeating it every exercise. So that actually becomes very, very good because the clients learn what to anticipate in what order, and then you can be much more minimalistic and with your words, but more intentional with like your verb choice and tone of voice, and all of a sudden teaching gets so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but without a structure and a strategy, then it's just like unnecessarily complicated. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you have a consistent method and structure and your clients get on board with that?
Mm.
It's an unspoken thing. When people come and do their mentoring with me and they observe my classes, they're often quite amazed, like, wow, like your clients are amazing. Like they just know exactly when a layer is going to come, or they know exactly like when to transition. I'm like, yes, because I follow a structure.
Mm.
I'm consistent with how I count. I'm consistent with the types of phrases I use, or phrases I don't use. I'm just consistent with my structure.
Mm.
And it's something that I've refined
Yep.
over time. It hasn't, this isn't something I've been using from, day one. This is something that I've refined over time.
Mm. It's just that trial and error, and it's almost like a process of natural selection. You're trying these different cues and you're trying these different structures, and then you just see that, okay, this one works better than this one. And you're just doing that every week for years. Eventually you come to like a bulletproof kind of like format where it's like,
Yeah.
this has been battle tested and it just works.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so grateful for have been a group reformer instructor for this amount of time, actually, because I've seen so many buddies.
Mm.
I've seen so many people on the reformer. In some sense, I feel like I have a sixth sense sometimes, because I know exactly what's going to happen if I say this or if I don't say that. It's not because I have some kind of magic power, is because I've seen it again and again and again. I've seen it so many times now that I know exactly how this is going to go if I follow ABC.
That's right. That's right. It's like you can anticipate everything. And it's also pattern recognition. Yeah. Yes, you can anticipate everything, and it's pattern recognition. The patterns of behavior, it's all about probability. Like if you, as an instructor, you say one phrase as opposed to another, what's the probability that phrase will get the outcome versus another one? And if you look at the outcome being how many people are in the room are moving exactly the way you intended, and then it's just a probability game, how I say it, what I say, over time, and you're just kind of getting the feedback as you watch the result, using awareness and observation. Then you're just picking the thing which works the best again and again and again. And that's why awareness is so powerful, because without awareness, you're not really going to improve. So that's why I find philosophy so awesome, because to talk to someone like yourself who's got 16 years experience teaching, and then more experience being a client, you don't come to these conclusions by accident. It's just so many hours of like intentional training to come to these decisions. Every time you say something and you do something, it's for a reason, and that's one thing I think that gives you confidence when you're more experienced as an instructor, because you can justify everything you do. You've got somewhere you're trying to go. So that's why it's so valuable for new instructors and even experienced instructors to come to workshops like yours, because you're going to get like an advantage. It's like, imagine if you said to someone, hey, do you want to learn 16 years worth of, education in like 2 hours? You know what I mean? Do you want to like minimize the like learning time required to get to this same level of knowledge and skill? Rather than taking you 5 years, I can show you how to do it in like a space of 2 hours and maybe a bit more like online content. Like that's the outcome from training with someone who's done it. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for coming down here and joining me today in the studio.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're a massive inspiration, and I love to see the progression that you just keep on going everywhere. And I totally relate. I've never found emails so exciting in my life. You randomly get an email. It's like used to be like this promotional content of just random stuff, and now it's like people asking you things if you want to do something.
Yes.
Or maybe it might be like an online sale. It's always exciting to look at emails. So I hope from today there's some people out there that will take on board the lessons that you've shared, and that will help them directly progress their career just like you've done for yourself. So thank you for coming in.
Well, Nathan, I should actually thank you because 2 years ago, when I even had the inkling, oh, maybe I could start to travel and maybe I could have my own educational products, I actually had you as a bit of a marker. I was like, okay, well, I followed you on Instagram and I was like, well, he's made it happen. I was like, so maybe I can make it happen as well. So I've held you in as one of my inspirations for what I could aspire to. So I should thank you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Thank you. And yeah, look forward to following your journey, and maybe we definitely check back in the next couple of years and see what's been going on.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Thank you.